Hey everybody, Todd Bartusek with Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate in the All Metros Real Estate Group. So coming to you again with a July market report for Omaha. And then we're also going to talk about just a little bit hyper-local of a market, and that's the Westside area. But first, so last week, the last week essentially in July through the first part of August, I was in Anaheim, California for a national convention, something that I've been a part of for about 10 years. It was really pretty interesting. So, I want to kind of just talk about the overall market and what's projected, because we have a lot of analysts that come and talk to us and a lot of lenders. So overall, I would say the market is doing what's kind of normalizing. Right, so I've been doing this for almost 26 years. Back in the day, it was not uncommon for a house to sell, to take 30 to 60 days to sell. Doesn't necessarily mean that that's how long it would take your house to sell, but our days on market have increased a bit over the last couple of years. And there's a number of things, going on, which will sort of indicate and dictate why the market has changed a bit. First, I guess, interest rates. So interest rates have, crept back up. They're about 6 3/4 as of today when it's August 11th. So about 6 3/4. Now, at the end of the day, you guys, that's still fairly low from a historical standpoint. When I bought my very first house in 1997, my rate was like 8. I think it was like 8 1/8, something like that. Historically, under 7, still a pretty cheap rate. It's not obviously what was going on during COVID, where we had, saw 2.75, 3%. We're never going to see that interest rate again. And if we do, we have bigger problems. So the interest rate has something to do with, some of the, I guess, slowness of the market. The other things that are going on is inflation, right? So we have an affordability issue. Everything from even insurance. So insurance over the last couple of years has actually doubled. Some cases even more than doubled. So insurance is all part of the overall payment total, PITI, principal and interest, taxes and insurance. So that all really just paints a picture for a buyer of, okay, if our insurance is going up, if our taxes have gone up, that all becomes an affordability issue. So not that houses are not selling, because they are still selling. They're just not selling at the clip that they were a couple years ago. Consumer confidence, just because of the overall economy, has somewhat dipped, right? So, and that can certainly play a factor, and that's nationwide, right? But then when we talk about Omaha, okay, so there's kind of your national, high level look at the market. Now the Omaha. So really, again, what we're seeing in Omaha is, from June to July, we had a decrease of sales of about 17%. We went from 1,024 to 853. Totally does not surprise me. The summer, surprisingly, most people think that the summer's a really, really strong time to sell a house. It's not a bad time. It's just not necessarily the strongest. In my experience over my, quarter century of doing, real estate sales, is that August is one of the slowest months of the year, and July's right behind it. Because you have things like, especially in August, right? You have last minute vacations before kids go back to school. So knowing that we had a dip in sales from June to July, totally normal. We will see a dip in sales from July to August. So I'll have an August report, and rest assured, I'm going to say the exact same thing. But we did actually have an increase in overall sales price of about 4%. So we went from about $379 to about $395. So what we did see, and I'll get to that in a minute, was that we did have some higher end houses where the first time home buyer market was really kind of driving things in the last few months. Well, we've actually seen some higher end luxury houses that have actually sold. So that kind of bumped that overall price a little bit. So, and surprisingly for me, like this was kind of a shocker, our average days on market went from 14 to 12. So prices went up on average, and our days on market dropped a bit. That's the overall, okay? So then I always like to break it into 3 different segments. I like the first-time homebuyer price point, I like the move up, and then I like the luxury. So the first-time homebuyer price point is 0 to 350. So we had a decrease in that. So we saw 590 in June, 473 in July. That's a decrease of 19%. And we went slightly down in price from about 257 to about 256. So not even a 0.5%. Our days on market stayed pretty static, went from 11 to 10. That's the first time homebuyer price point. And what I've seen there also, you guys, is I've seen multiple offers still in that first time homebuyer price point, but we've seen some lower houses, some lower priced houses get listed. And honestly, they're still selling like that. I had one a couple of weeks ago. We had 3 offers. Now, 2 years ago, we would have had 23, but we had 3. So if you're in that first time homebuyer price point as a seller, as long as you're conditioned appropriately and you're marketed, aggressively, you will sell it for a good price. If you're a buyer in that first time homebuyer price point, definitely make sure that you've got a updated approval letter and that you've talked with your agent about some of the tricks of the trade on how to actually win a multiple offer situation. I helped a buyer in this same price point, longtime client of mine. He was buying a house for his son. We actually beat out like 3 other offers, and we weren't even the highest price, right? So if you have an agent that's, if you guys are writing offers and you're not winning deals, I would have a real come to Jesus talk with him about like, hey, what's going on? Why are we not winning these? Because it's not always about price. You got to really try to, meet the seller where they're at and hey, what's important to them? Because shockingly enough, you guys, the top amount or the highest price is not always the main driver and motivator for that seller. So move up price, that's 350 to 750. So we saw 395 in June and 343 in July. So that was a drop of about 13%. And our overall price point dropped also just a little bit. We went from about 468 to about 464. So we dropped, almost a full percent. Average days on market went up about 2 days. So that's what I call the messy middle, right? So the first time homebuyer market and the luxury market have actually been doing really well. But anything, again, messy middle, I call that 400 to about 800, maybe 900, depending on the actual neighborhood. That's where we have seen an inventory increase. Now, this was only existing sales data that we're using here, but I will tell you that there's a lot of new construction out there right now. And if you're a buyer looking to buy new construction, there's some incentives that builders are getting. There's some upgrades that buyers are able to negotiate in a transaction. So make sure if you are looking at new construction that you have an agent that is experienced in working deals against a builder, right? Because, if you don't know that some of these builders are offering to pay closing costs or offering to upgrade the appliance package or the flooring package or whatever the case may be, you're gonna leave money on the table. So the luxury is gonna be 750 and above. And again, this is existing prices only, or existing homes only. So we basically had the same amount of units. We went from 53 to 52, not a big deal. Our average price point, however, jumped almost 11%. We went from $1,091,000 to about 1.2 million, right? So what that shows me is that we had a number of houses that were, in that higher price point, because when you jump almost 11% in a 7-figure price point, we got some big guys out there selling. A lot of times what happens with that upper end market, they're not as concerned with interest rate, because a lot of times these big deals, these big, luxury deals, they're cash. So, but now what we did also see, we saw that the average days on market went from 10 to 22. So yeah, it took longer to sell them, but we had some higher priced houses sit. And I have, seen some of them. I mean, I was involved with a couple of them that, yeah, finally, some sellers came down in price, and these were already higher end prices, in the twos, 2 million, high 1 million, that the sellers came down in price and they got offers that really they needed to take because the market was determining that, hey, Mr. Seller, yeah, you got a beautiful property, but the market's telling you you're overpriced. So that was the overall Omaha market report. Now what I want to talk about is kind of a hyper-local neighborhood, and that's in the Westside area. So we saw a decrease in sales, again, same, just like we did in the overall Omaha market, where we went from, a higher number sales in June down to a lower in July. We dropped about 9% in Westside. So we went from 45 deals to 41 from June, July. Our average price point, however, jumped 20% overall. And I'll get into that when we talk about the rest of the market, but we went from about 458 to about 550. Average days on market, 8 to 7, so stayed about the same. So the first-time homebuyer price point for Westside, we had a total number drop about 19% from 26 to 21, and we had a decrease in price of about 1.7%. So we went from about 262 to about 257. Average days on market, 9 to 8. So stayed very, very consistent. The move-up market in Westside, that's 350 to 750. We had a slight increase in sales, 11 to 13, which is actually an 18% increase. But it was just the units. But we had an average overall increase in price of about 4%, from about 472 to about 491. So the good news there is, like in the Westside messy middle, as I call it, we actually had more houses sell. So that tells me that there's buyers that are in that $400,000 to $900,000 price range that are very motivated to actually get deals done. So that's actually a really good sign. Average days on market, only 4. So that's actually really low for, basically $500,000. Then in the luxury market in Westside, we stayed about the same on units, 8 in June, 7 in July, but we had a big increase in average sale price. We went from $1,075,000 to over $1.5 million. It's a 43% increase. The reason being, we had a handful of them that were in the 3 million range that finally sold. So that really bumped that number. That doesn't mean that the average luxury house in Westside is 1.5 million, but it just means that in July we had a couple of big ones move, which is a good sign also, because it shows that, knowing that these luxury price points, a lot of times if they're cash, shows me that, that cash luxury buyer felt confident enough with the economy, with the market, with the product, whatever that's out there, to go purchase a $3 million home. Average days on market went from 7 to 12. So we had an increase there, which again, doesn't surprise me, knowing that that's $1.5 million on the average for the luxury. So at the end of the day, guys, really what I'm saying is, we have a normalizing market, right? So we're seeing, houses staying around the same price when we're looking at the first-time homebuyer price point. The messy middle, if you're in the Omaha market, you're probably dropping just a little bit. If you're in the luxury, in the Omaha and the Westside market, you're actually on the rise. So shows me that people are willing to spend money in Omaha because they see the value in these higher end homes. But at the end of the day, that first-time homebuyer price point continues to really drive everything, right? You sell your first-time homebuyer house, you move into the move up. So market's still moving. People are still out buying and selling. Obviously, it slows down in July and August. But at the end of the day, still a really good time to be a buyer. And also, depending on what your product is, it's a good time to be a seller based on the numbers that I just showed you. And what's really important as a seller is, so it's like when you sell a car, right? This is kind of how I always state it. Whenever you sell your car, you're doing what? You're gonna update it, you're gonna detail it, right? So same thing. Whenever I walk through somebody's house, I always come in and I use what I call my buyer's eyes, right? I wanna walk around essentially just viewing the house, from the lens of a buyer, right? So is there anything that we can do to, are there any touch-ups that we need to do? Any, staging, decluttering? Do we need to touch up the landscaping? Because your curb appeal is the first thing that somebody sees, right? Because you only get one chance at that first impression. And these are really, really important steps to take. Because of the steps that we always take when we work with a seller, and the aggressive marketing campaign that we actually execute on. We have a 19-point plan. Last year, our clients, their homes sold for 2% more than the average in the Omaha MLS. So 2% of a house, that's real money. And it's not an accident, right? I mean, we're very diligent about working with a seller and like, hey, Mr. Seller, let's do this, this, and this, because you will see a return on this. But I don't ever want to see anybody put any time, money, or effort into something that's not going to get them the return. So that's why when I'm setting up appointments with my sellers, that's what they understand. That's the expectation. I'm coming in to look at their house and figure out how we get them the best deal. And if they don't have the painter, the handyman, whatever the case may be, I've been doing this for over 25 years. I have a great contractor network, and they always, sharpen their pencil for my clients because they get a lot of business from us. So at the end of the day, if you guys have any questions about the market, I would love to be your knowledge broker, and I would love to be there to help you answer questions. Obviously, no obligation. Also, if it's a friend or family member that maybe has had their house on the market for a while and they need some real sound advice and a fresh opinion and a fresh approach, call me. Again, no obligation. Just this last month, I've had 2 of those where their houses weren't selling and they needed to do something. And, sometimes, the other agent may not have a marketing plan. They just stick a sign in the ground and they hope it sells. So, but if you like what you see here, as far as watching the market report and really understanding what's going on overall nationally and locally, please subscribe to my channel and please follow me on social. I appreciate you watching. Talk to you later.